Hi there. Today we are going to talk about Lesson 91, Evaluation with Negative and Positive Numbers. Now, we need to notice one thing that you really have to do with this, and that is the use of parentheses. When you're trying to evaluate negatives and positives and you're subbing them into or substituting them into expressions or equations, sometimes you can get messed up with the negatives if you don't somehow separate them. So use parentheses. Put parentheses in as much as you need to keep track of the negatives, especially, sometimes there ends up to be two negatives in a row, and if you don't have parentheses, you'll get messed up. You won't have them. You won't notice there's two, and then you'll end up with a wrong answer because you didn't notice that. I'd like to do a couple of examples here. You need to evaluate. Here is the first expression that I want you to evaluate with me. Okay, the expression is A minus BC plus A. Now you notice that minus BC, that could be problematic if you end up with negatives for your B and C. And in fact, you do end up with negatives for your B and C, at least for your B. If A is -2 and B is -1 and C equals 3. C is the only positive one in there. Okay, so we will be substituting these values here into this expression, and then we are going to evaluate the expression. So and I'm writing the steps. I want these steps in your notes because I want you to be able to go back and say, oh yeah, that's why we do that. First of all, rewrite the expression putting some parentheses in. And these parentheses are just to separate each term, because each one of these is a term that you're going to be substituting numbers in for the variable letters. The second thing, then we actually do the substitution, and you're going to see right now why you need the parentheses. So we put -2 here, and then minus, -1 times 3. So we really need to separate that. I actually put 2 layers of parentheses. I put parentheses around these variables, B and C, and then I put a parentheses outside, denoting that I want to multiply these first before I operate on them with the minus. And then plus -2, and I put a parenthesis around that. PEMDAS tells us that we have to do what's inside parentheses first, so that's what we're going to do right here. Okay, we have -2, and don't pay attention to the red for just a second. -2, and then -1 times 3 makes it a -3, plus -2. Rules of negatives and positives. Then I went through, you know me, I don't like 2 negatives in a row. So 2 negatives make a positive, so I just changed this. Instead of a negative minus a -3, I changed it to plus a plus, which in the next step changes it to a +3. So rules of negative and positive told me I could do this. Now, addition of negative and positive, I've got addition everywhere. I don't have to deal with any minuses, and therefore I can change order if I want to, which is what I'm going to do in the next step. Commutative property tells me I can take -2 plus -2 plus 3, and I could also use the associative property and group these two together, and I would end up with -4 plus +3, and then I end up with -1, because a negative plus a positive, you subtract and take the sign of the larger number. In this 4 even without the negative is a larger number, and so therefore you end up with -1. Okay, that's example number 1. Example number 2 is just a little bit different, so we'll go through that. It wants you to evaluate 5x minus 4z minus x if x equal 1, y equal -2, and z equal -3. We will use substitution to do this, and again I have the steps. I notice I added parentheses. That was my very first step. Add parentheses, add parentheses, add parentheses. Then I substituted the numbers in. So 5 times 1 minus -2 times -3 minus +1. Okay, all substitution. Now, PEMDAS tells us we do what's in parentheses first, so 5 minus -2 times a -3 is a +6 minus 1. Rules of negatives and positives. I went through and I changed the subtraction to addition. So this became, instead of 5 minus 6, it is now 5 plus a -6 plus a -1. I just transferred the negative over to the next number. Okay, now I have 5 plus, and -6 plus -1, I use the associative property to group these two. And a -6 plus a -1 is a -7. So I end up with 5 plus a -7 and -2. So that is my answer. And this is all evaluating. We aren't, these first two are not equations. They are expressions. And all we've done is substituted in the values for those variables and known as expressions. Now, there's another way that we can use this method, but we'll actually be using it with equations. You can do it with expressions, you can do it with equations. Let's say we're given the following equation. This is example 3. All the examples must be in your notes. 3x plus 7 equals 8. Now, we are given a possible solution. They say, hey, we think that x could be -5. You check it out and let us know if it is. So we're like, okay, that's fine, we can do that. So what we're given is a possible value for x of -5. So we need to decide if -5 works for this equation. So we substitute -5 for x, and we do the evaluation thing, okay? So 3 times, notice I put -5 in parentheses, plus 7 equal 8. True or false? That's what we're trying to decide. So go ahead and do the math. Crunch the numbers. 3 times -5 is -15, plus 7 equal 8. Is -8 the same thing as 8? No, it is not. So I put a big cross through there to show not equal, and say no, it's not, it is false. So -5 is not a solution for x. You will be asked that question, and you'll be doing this quite a bit. These are common problems you're going to see on homework coming up. Okay, we have one more example, and we do have challenge problems, so stick around. So one more example. Example 4. Evaluate 4x plus 25 equal 9 for x equal -4. Let's see if -4 works for this one. It's a true or false thing. Does it work or doesn't it? Okay, so we use substitution and parentheses. So I said 4 times -4, that's our x up here, plus 25 equal 9. Go ahead and solve. -16 plus 25 equal 9. Does 9 equal 9? Yep, it does. So this one, it happens to be true. X is indeed equal to -4, and it does work, and so we could say yes, that is a solution, and in fact that's the only solution. Okay, challenge problems. Are you ready? Write these down, get them right, bring them up, and I'll give you bonus for them. Evaluate m times the quantity m plus n plus n if m equal -2, n equal -3. Second challenge problem. Evaluate to see if x equal 2 is a correct solution for the equation below. Here's the equation. -3x plus 8 equal 14. Is it true if x equal 2? Alrighty, I will let you go. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you later.